Welcome to my first Baldur's Gate 3 video. We'll be taking a look at useful tips I've learned after spending 200 hours in early access. Even if I've played D&D for 7 years, the mechanics play out differently in this RPG video game format. No longer can I start off at level 5 with great stats I rolled and a broken Bladesinger build. I don't doubt that even experienced nerds of both D&D and BG3 will find some useful content here. We'll be going over broader tricks as well as tips for combat and ways to get that juicy RPG gear. For the sake of convenience, I'll put timestamps detailing each theme I'll be covering. Let's start off with guidance. Having a party member with a guidance cantrip is like having a reliable friend. In your darkest moments, there they shine. Whenever prompted to make a d20 check in dialogue, you can cast guidance to add a d4 to the check. Even if your odds of beating the difficulty class, aka the DC, are low, guidance can turn an initial failure into a success. You can get the cantrip as a druid or cleric. If you don't start or multi-class as either of those classes, you can always recruit Shadowheart or Daddy Halsin in your party. As you may have heard, they also come with certain added benefits. Otherwise, you can pick up the Magic Initiate feat and choose Druid or Cleric to be able to learn guidance. This will also let you get a healing spell like Healing Word, the best spell for telling your fallen allies to wake up. Sleep. Like me, you may hesitate to use rests in the early game. Unless you want to artificially increase the difficulty of the game, which you can absolutely do, short rest between every fight and long rest when you run out of resources. Besides, we'll be getting the hardcore tactician mode at launch. If you've played Larian's previous title, DOS 2, you know this mode can make you feel like inhaling death fog. I think the most fun way to play this game is to stretch out your abilities throughout the day, as that's how the game is meant to be played. If you've played D&D before, you may be used to long resting between every single fight. Many DMs, like me, don't bother to throw many fights in a row at their group. Other than when you get jumped by enemies, it'll be up to you to plan for fights ahead. You get plenty of camp supplies by being a loot goblin and ravaging kitchens, so don't hesitate to use them when you need a good snoring session. A long rest is only 40 camp supplies, which is roughly 8 potatoes. High ground. This game's terrain lets you really take advantage of verticality, and if you don't, it'll be used against you. When looming above your enemies, you gain a whole ass buffet of buffs. High ground gives you +2 to hitting enemies at a range, extends that range, gives enemies trying to shoot you back a -2 to hit, and it lets you hide better on ledges and to seek cover. By weaving in and out of line of sight every turn, you'll prompt enemies to have to get to you. If they make the mistake of doing so, you can push them off with a ton of abilities. Sweaty buff characters can shove people off rather easily. Spellcasters can use spells like Thunder Wave or a repelling Eldritch Blast for the same effect, with added damage. Beyond that extra fall damage, you're also sending them far away from you, which is quite useful if you're a ranged character, because slapping them with your wand might be ineffective. If you're next to deep pits, you can insta-kill the enemies as you push them off into the abyss. Careful though, this means you won't be able to loot them afterwards. Defending paths. You can use continual area of effect spells like Grease and Cloud of Daggers to close off choke points. Analyze the battlefield and look at what areas enemies are likely going to have to traverse. If you know enemies have to get through a certain area to reach you, make it hell for them. Just with Grease, they'll be all lubed up and constantly falling over, losing their turns. You can also combine Grease, oil, or poison with fire to make explosions. If you have a tanky melee character, you can also just put them there menacingly to farm opportunity attacks if they dare to try to run past them. Dark areas and examining. Every time you hover over an enemy or yourself while in combat, you'll see an array of status effects. Certain ones, like advantage or spells, influence the likelihood of hitting enemies. The most common cause of having this advantage is trying to hit a target while they're obscured. This is where the common racial trait Dark Vision really gives you an edge over humans and halflings. You can also substitute with a torch or a light spell. If you know a fight is ahead, cast light on a melee character. Now your barbarian will serve as a lighthouse as they flashbang enemies by flexing. You can also examine every creature to get a more detailed view of status conditions. While you're browsing through their medical plan, you can see their stats and resistances as well. This is also helpful for your own character when you don't know where you're bent over and panting. Interact with terrain. Larian Studios loves to give you tools to play with in combat. Always scan the battlefield. It'll often reveal objects you can break and use. If you see an enemy standing over a bridge, check if the structure has HP. You can simply hit the wooden planks with 100% accuracy and make them fall to their death. Also look above, you might be able to drop chandeliers and stalactites to impale your foes. They'll be looking up with more despair than Willem Dafoe. Sometimes it might look like you can hit an enemy behind cover, but your arrow just sticks into a ladder instead. If you ever see that the path is interrupted when you try to shoot, try to reposition if possible. You can also sabotage fights ahead of time by poisoning drinking supplies or placing strategic explosives around. Open your eyes to the possibilities around you. Use bonus actions. You get way more options to use your bonus actions on in BG3 compared to D&D 5e. Beyond your class or race related bonus actions, every character gets a bunch of options. If you want more movement, jump is guaranteed to get you further, especially as a muscular character. It's also very helpful when you want to leap to high grounds, which I've already explained is a game changer in combat. Before engaging with an enemy, check the ground near you for wacky surfaces. You can dip your weapon into fire or poison for some nice extra damage and effects. Make sure to do so before attacking, otherwise you'll end up in melee with a boring, normal sword lacking flames. Sneaking as a bonus action isn't just for rogues, by the way. Sneaking successfully before attacking an enemy gives you advantage on the attack. Live your best ninja life. If you ever get spotted and stabbed, remember you can also chug potions as a bonus action. You should never let your bonus action be wasted. Looting mode. It's very hard to spot all the loot there is to find on the ground. I recommend repeatedly pressing the Alt key or whatever you have binded to Show World Tooltips. Press it continuously when exploring new areas. It'll alert you to hidden keys and valuable items you may have walked past. For my fellow RPG loot fanatics, you might want to keep this key pressed at all times practically. I don't take 10 steps in this game without making sure I'm grabbing every piece of garbage along the way. Traders are precious. Especially in the early game, traders are sparse. To make matters worse, you'll probably end up killing a few, accidentally or not. You can only edge choosing sides for so long before things burst. I'd recommend sparing their feeble lives as long as you can because they're crucial for certain aspects of this game. Their inventory restocks every long rest and level up, so they're a renewable source of gold. To make the most of them, I recommend the following steps. Grab all the gear you find that is worth more than 10 gold and send it to camp. Then, when you find a trader, go right next to them and fast travel back to camp. Overload your character with the highest charisma until they're heavily encumbered and select Leave Camp. You can then sell all your junk without having to keep it in your inventory. Once you're done milking them for all of their gold, you might want to let the dark thoughts take over. Every item you've sold them will still be on their corpse, which isn't the case for the gold or usual stock. If you kill them prematurely, they only drop a select few of their items up for sale, usually at random. Use consumables. Scrolls, potions, and throwable items are all tools that are meant to be used. Make sure to get every healing potion you can from traders. The price is worth it, trust me. If you follow my previous tip on trading shenanigans, you should have gold to spare. You can actually throw potions next to people to heal them at a range. The consumables you get usually aren't worth selling anyways. Don't become too attached to them either. There's little need to hold on to them as if they were rising in value. I really hope these tips will help you navigate the world of Baldur's Gate 3 as you get your journey started. Thank you so much for watching, and consider subscribing as I plan on making many more videos on this game, covering awesome multi-classed builds, clips, and tutorials. I hope to see you soon.